UFC Fight Night Macau is this Saturday. I've got your full card betting breakdown. I'm going to go through each and every fight on the card, give you my thoughts from a betting perspective, whether I'll be betting it, whether I'll be betting the money line, and we'll give you even a little bit of a parlay of the week at the end. Stay tuned. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of D107 MMA. I'm DS, and I'm here today to break down UFC Macau, which is this weekend, this Saturday, coming up. I'm going to give you all of your best bets, and that's what the fuck I'm here for. As a little disclaimer, before I get into the card and all the details and all that good stuff, just a general kind of thought and feeling that I have towards cards like these. If you look at the prospects, right, from this region of the world, right, you will see a common theme very often. And it's the fact that you'll see a 22, 25-year-old guy, right, who's had 35 fights, right? And that's just not normal. But then if you dig a little bit deeper, you notice that he's an absolute can crusher, right? They're fighting absolute nobodies. The level of competition over there is not very high. Most often, these guys are strikers, right? And there are some that are good grapplers, right? But the guys that are good grapplers are typically not good strikers. So take all of this with a grain of salt. This is, just this region of the world. It's not comparing apples to apples, right? It's not like you can compare somebody who's been fighting in the UFC or fighting in the LFA even, or Cage Warriors, right? Or some of these other more well-known and respected promotions to somebody who's been fighting at I'm the Champion FC or whatever the fuck they're fighting at. So just as a general disclaimer, before I get into the card, I'm generally not a big believer in the prospects from this portion of the world. In fact, the women tend to be the better prospects here, and I think that's kind of what we're going to be seeing here. And if you look at the way that the card is positioned, I think that the UFC feels the same way as well. The road to the UFC, kind of a garbage-ass tournament, I'm not going to lie. You have a couple finals of the road to the UFC tournament in this as well. So just as a general rule of thumb, wanted to get that out of the way real quick. But without further ado, with a little bit of further ado, please like and subscribe, as the little thing at the bottom says. We give you all these picks and shit for free. That's all I ask, really. Give me a little like, give me a subscribe button. If you hate my picks, go ahead and comment. Let me know why you hate them so much. If you love them and you just want to tell me how cute I look, please do that as well. It's always appreciated. So, all right. Now that that's all out of the way, let's dive right into it. Thank God we have 13 fucking fights to get through. I'm going to blaze through these. Stop me if you want. Just kidding. You can. It's a pre-recorded video. All right. First fight of the night. We've got Maheshate. He is taking on Nicholas Mota. Off the bat, this is the exact kind of fight that I do not like to bet. I simply don't. I don't trust either of these guys. We've seen both these guys look okay. Nicholas Mota, he's had some moments. He's got a decent record, 14-5. Both these guys have a decent record, but, for Maheshate, a close split decision win over an aging Gabriel Benitez, not something that I hold in high regard. Nicholas Mota, he's chinny. He can be a little bit, not the smartest fight IQ-wise. So for me, I'm just simply not going to bet this one, man. I'm not going to bet it. I think Nicholas Mota is what I would sprinkle if I was going to sprinkle anything. You're getting plus money. Nicholas Mota by knockout, I think, is a good bet too. It's just not one that I'm going to make an official part of my bets that I'm giving you. You do what you want. All right, moving on to the next fight of the night. We've got Long Zhao. He is taking on Quang Li. She only liked me because my Zhao Long, if you know what I mean. This is an interesting fight, man. To me, I'm kind of shocked at the odds here. Quang Li being the underdog. I know it's not by much, but I think he's got the better offensive takedowns. He's got the better grappling overall. He also has better power on the feet, in my opinion. He's got a really nice left hook. He went to a close fight with Chris Gutierrez in his debut, which is a very tough fight. Long Zhao, meanwhile, has only fought based on the road to the UFC. Not a fan of the competition there. I really don't understand these odds, to be quite honest with you. I was close to betting Quang Li on the money line here. I just think he potentially is better everywhere. So I think the odds make sense here for a bet. I'm just not quite comfortable with it in terms of the money line pick. But what I am pretty comfortable here with is the over 2.5 rounds. minus 220. Is it the best odds? Not necessarily. If anybody does get a finish, I do think it will be Quang Lee. Oh man, I've gone back and forth on it. But I'm going to stick with my over 2.5 rounds here, simply because, again, this region of the world, it's tough to know what you're looking at. At times, Long Zhao has way more experience. He's got 27 fights to his name. Quang Lee has only 9. But when you look at the eye test and you look at the power and you look at the offensive grappling, to me, Quang Lee is the clear better fighter here. But for the purpose of the bets, I'm going to go over 2.5 rounds, guys. Moving on to the next fight, we've got Loner Kavanaugh. Why in the world would you ever name your child that? He is taking on Jose Ochoa. Man, Loner Kavanaugh is clearly, like, if you're looking for prospects on this card, he's half Chinese, so he's repping China, which is why he's on this card. He's half Irish, too. But, yeah, a well-rounded fighter. Haven't really seen a weakness in him, to be honest with you. Jose Ochoa hasn't really passed the eye test for me, quite frankly. He hasn't really shown me much that stands out. Kavanaugh got a really nice knockout on the Contender Series. Ochoa is from Peru, too, and Peru not really known for producing high-level prospects. To me, Ochoa certainly does have a chance. He's got some power. I just think this is a fight that's kind of tailor-made for Loner Kavanaugh to win. The UFC wants him to win. He went pretty viral for that knockout on the Contender Series. So I'm taking Loner Kavanaugh on the money line here at minus 375. Probably makes a better parlay piece than it does a straight bet, but I'm taking it. Moving on to the next fight, we've got Carlos Hernandez. He is taking on Nyamjargal Dembarel. This man is obviously from Thailand, if you can't tell by the name, or he's got to be, I imagine, right? Yes. Yeah, look, man, Carlos Hernandez, not my favorite fighter. He really isn't. I don't really trust him overall, right? He's kind of a boring fighter, right? He doesn't have a lot of power. He's not like an ace in the grappling. He's got pretty good grappling. He's got very good jiu-jitsu, but he's not uninspired, right? Uninspiring to me. I do like Nyam Jargal here, but again, this is another one of those, man, where I just don't feel comfortable betting it. Nyam Jargal throws some wild-ass punches, and he's got a lot of power. I think he can definitely do damage on Carlos Hernandez. Maybe Carlos Hernandez, first of all, experience level-wise, Carlos Hernandez is much, much better in terms of the opponents that he's fought. Because of the kind of the craziness and the wild aspect of the Asian fighter, and because I'm just not a big fan of Carlos Hernandez and his style of fighting, I'm going to skip this one. I'm not betting it. All right, moving on to the next fight, and now we are getting into I believe there's 3 of them. Yes, 3 of the tournament championship fights, let's say, for the road to the UFC, which is a trash tournament overall, no disrespect. The first one being in the women's flyweight division, we've got Xiao Shanfeng. She is taking on Ming Shi. Xiao Shanfeng is quite a big favorite here. Ming Shi is literally 5'2" and 30 years old. Xiao Shanfeng is almost as experienced. She's only 22 years old, and she is 5'7" with a 66-inch reach. So this is a very, very much an eye test pick, and also just kind of a physical stature pick, right? Because when you have a 6-inch reach advantage, you have a 5-inch. You have a 6-inch reach advantage. You have a 5-inch height advantage. Plus, you have a fighter that's 8 years younger. Plus, it's not like this is the UFC where you've got 2 women. One is, older fighter who is a lot more experienced, has all this UFC experience, has fought a high level of competition, and now you're comparing her to a newcomer. If you've been following this channel for any amount of time, that we tend here to fade those types of fighters, right, in those types of situations. However, this is not that, right? These are 2 Chinese fighters who have exclusively fought over, in China, in that region of the world. I can't, in my right mind, possibly pick Ming Shi. And despite the odds, I am very, very confident here that Fang is going to get it done. And that is why I'm picking her. She's also she's not just like much tall. She's long. She's long for her frame in general. She's got good kicks, good punches. I'm absolutely picking her to win. And while this may seem like a fight that I'm typically going to stay away from, and by the way, this is one that I probably would rather put into a parlay rather than just doing it as a straight bet, given the odds here, obviously. I'm gonna take Fang, man. I'm gonna take Fang, and I feel pretty confident about it. Moving on to the second of three of the road to the UFC championships. We've got Kiru Sahata. He is taking on Dong-Hoon Choi. And this, I mean, again, there's not a lot of tape on these guys, right? But what we do know is that, and this is going to sound simple, but these guys, especially at these weight classes, they simply don't get finishes, right? If I had to pick somebody, I would probably go with Choi here. He's won 2 of his road to the UFC fights, but they've been by split decision, right? And then you look, but then you look at how durable he is, right? So you combine that and with his movement as well. Sahata does have more power. I just don't really see him like landing a clean shot on somebody like Dong-Hoon Choi, who's able to move around the octagon very well. You can tell that he's got a good feel for the spacing in the octagon. For me, I mean, unless you think Sahata's going to get a knockout here, which I really don't, I see this fight going the distance, man. I see this fight going the distance. And again, and this is kind of a theme here, I expect a lot of decisions on this card until we get to the top, obviously, of the card, which is a pretty top-heavy card, especially in terms of name value. I am going to take the over 2.5 rounds here, minus 238. I think this is a guarantee. I really do. Moving on to the third and final of the road to the UFC tournament fights, we've got Su Young Yu. He is taking on Balgin Janisuli. This is let me just find my notes for this one. Another one that I expect to go the distance, quite frankly. The only reason that I'm not going to pick it and make it part of the official bets like I did the last two is mostly because of the power of Balgin Janisuli. He's got some good hands. He's got some good punches. He's got decent wrestling. Yu's not bad either, right? Yu's not bad either. Both these guys have decent cardio. So really, I don't have a strong opinion on who's going to win this fight. I expect it to be pretty close, but I do have a strong opinion on this. I'm not going to bet it officially because of the power of Janisuli, but if you're going to bet anything, I would take the over 2.5 here as well. And I can tell you what those odds are just for shits and giggles. That would be a minus 195. So even better odds than the last two. Oh man, I might consider that, but I'm not going to make it part of the official bets for this video. Moving on to the next fight, and we are now finally done with the road to the UFC championship. Honestly, this next fight, man, Mingyang Zhang is a guy that is very interesting to me. Big power, exciting kind of fighter, a young, big, light heavyweight from this part of the world is something to get excited about, right? Ozzy Diaz, a lot of people I've noticed are picking Ozzy Diaz. Both these guys have a lot of power. I just like the style of Mingyang Zhang more here, man. You've got two big power punchers. It could go either way. There's certainly some risk to this one. But for me, the eye test, man, the eye test more than anything is what's going to push it over here, right? Diaz got KO'd on the Contender Series, and Mingyang Zhang he's been in trouble a couple times. But Ozzy tends to leave his hands down, and for me, I think Mingyang Zhang is very live for a knockout here. I would certainly not take the over on this, but I am going to pick Zhang on the money line, man. I just think he's kind of scary. He's a big dude, got a lot of power. He's in front of the home crowd here. He's looked good in his UFC fights thus far. Diaz got absolutely sparked by Joe Pyfer, and obviously Joe Pyfer has a lot of power. We get that. Mingyang Zhang never been a decision, hasn't lost since he was 21 years old. Give me Zhang by money line, man. Moving on to the next fight on the card, and here's where it gets very interesting. Very interesting. We've got the known Chinese fighter Volkan Oezdemir taking on Carlos Ulberg. I'm just kidding, obviously. Volkan Ozdemir versus Carlos Ulberg. Man, this is a very high level fight, and this is kind of do or die for Carlos Ulberg at this point. We've seen him look really good. He's very refined. He's big as fuck. He's kind of like Alex Pereira in that regard. He doesn't quite have that aura of, he's not as stern, and he's a city kickboxing kind of guy. Yeah, with Izzy being kind of out of the, not out of the picture, but doing his thing, Carlos Ulberg is like the next big thing to come out of that gym. But as Dino mentioned on the quick picks that he did as well, he's a guy who is not as young as like you would think, having only 11 fights. And I know he's a kickboxer and all this stuff, but 34 years old, right? And just turned 34, which, he's not like super old, especially at light heavyweight. But if he loses to Volkan Ozdemir and then now has to take, some time to win another 2-3 fights and then come back and see if he can do something, and now he's 36 years old, not as great, right? So he's got a lot on the line here, man. And I do think he's going to win. Volkan Ozdemir is very dangerous. These are two guys with big, big power. I just think Carlos Ulberg is smoother, more refined with the technique. But it also, I could see it being a trap fight, man. I really could see it being a trap fight. Volkan Ozdemir is very good. And maybe he's chinny at times. We've seen that a little bit, and he can be a little bit inconsistent. But you've got two big-ass guys who, and again, Volkan Ozdemir has also fought a lot better competition, too. If you look at his resume, it's pretty much the damn who's who of the light heavyweight division. I'm just not going to bet it, man. I'm not going to bet it. I do expect Carlos Ulberg to win. Minus 230 is a little aggressive for me. Plus, both guys have KO power. Volkan Ozdemir, probably the better grappler at this point, too. He is pretty well-rounded. I'm just not going to bet it, guys. I'm not going to bet it. Not comfortable doing so. All right, moving on to the next fight on the card. And here's another big prospect, man. Another big prospect. She's got sauce. She's an interesting lady. Kong Wang, minus 950, which is fucking crazy. Taking on Gabby Fernandez, who is a plus 625 favorite. Listen, man, split decision to Carly Giudice. Ass. Absolute ass. This is a guarantee. Lost to Teresa Bleda. Lost to Jasmine Jasudavicius, who's fine. Like, that is aged okay. That's fine. Fought in the elephant. She's not good, man. She's just not very good. Low level. This is one of those, right? This is like, we've seen this many times. We've seen this every themed card. There's a prospect or a couple prospects that they're trying to build up, and that's exactly what this is. Kong Wang, she came out as, the Joker face paint. She always has her face painted. She's going to do something fun. She's got a good personality, right? And, no disrespect, you don't see that a lot from fighters in this region. She's going to win this fight. She's going to win this. Now, a lot of people are picking her by knockout because we saw her get a very nice knockout last time out. She also beat Valentina Shevchenko in kickboxing. I think that there's a good probability of it. I'm just not quite as confident as some people are in the knockout. I think there's a good possibility that it goes to decision as well. Because before that, it's not like she was knocking people out cold, right? She's not Alex Pereira. But she's got some aura. I like her. So what I'm going to pick is I'm going to pick the double chance. I'm going to pick Wang double chance, KO, TKO, or decision, right? The odds much better. They go from whatever it was, minus 950 or whatever we just said, to minus 450. I think this is pretty much a guarantee. I guess she could slap on a submission at some point. I just don't really see that happening. Yeah, I'm excited to see how she does. I think she actually could be something. I don't think she's one of these prospects that were being force-fed. Now, with the history with Valentina Shevchenko, is she going to, if she wins this, maybe takes a decent step up, wins another fight or two, does so in dominant fashion, maybe she is Alex Pereira. Maybe she gets the Alex Pereira treatment of, you have a champion that you've beaten in kickboxing. It's the same damn story. A champion that you've beaten in kickboxing years ago. Now you're in the UFC. I feel like she could very well be on the fast track. So look out for her, and I'm taking her on the double chance, KO or decision. Anyway, I'm yapping. Just giving you guys some background. Moving on to the next fight. We've got Kenan Song versus Muslim Salikov. Man, this is an interesting one as well. So the way I feel about this fight is that Kenan Song is underrated. I really do think that he's underrated. We saw him put Ian Gary on his ass briefly. He's got a lot of power, right? he's been in the UFC and had some decent performances, man. But Muslim Salikov is just like, Kenan Song is not the smartest fighter in terms of the fight IQ. He does some stupid shit at times, which lends himself to getting some flashy knockdowns and things like that, but also leaves him open, right? Muslim Salikov is a guy who has some power. He is 40 years old now at this point, but the biggest thing is the wrestling, right? Is Kenan Song going to be able to keep it off the ground and keep it standing? And if he does, I think he's live for a knockout here, especially in a 40-year-old Muslim Salikov. If this was a year, let's say 2 years ago, I would smash Muslim Salikov easily all day. No way. No Diddy. But yeah, I would be taking Salikov easily, no questions asked here. But because he's 40 years old, Song has some power, I'm not going to bet it. I'm just not going to bet it. I've gone back and forth on it, but I'm simply not going to do it. Moving on to the next fight. We've got Yan Xiaonan versus Tabitha Ricci. Man, this is to me, I think people are discounting how good Yan Xiaonan is. And sure, like the problems that she's had in the past is in the grappling, but Tabitha Ricci has really nothing on the feet. Yan Xiaonan is a fucking killer on the feet, man. I think if it stays on the feet, she's going to absolutely dominate. To me, Tabitha Ricci has really one way to win this fight, and that's to get some crazy submission on the ground. But dude, look at Yan Xiaonan was on the ground with Weili Zhang, who is very fucking good on the ground. Sure, she's maybe not a specialist like Tabitha Ricci is, but she is very good on the ground. She's the better wrestler than Tabitha Ricci is for sure. And yes, Yan Xiaonan basically got put to sleep at the end of that first round in their fight. But I think she is a clear level above Tabitha Ricci, and I'm easily going to take her on the money line here. I'm taking Yan Xiaonan easily here, comfortably. Like, this is one of the locks of the card for me. She also beat Mackenzie Dern. That's right. Thank you. Which is a similar fighter, essentially. Which is, I think, what Dino Bam Bam here behind the scenes is getting at. All right. Moving on to the main event of Saturday morning, I guess. Peter Yan versus Davison Figueiredo. And look, I know if you've seen quick picks, you know, and if you've watched this for any amount of time, you know that Dino Bam Bam loves himself some Davison Figueiredo. He's looked really good in the move up to 135. Peter Yan, you know, did he look the best last time out? Not necessarily. I think it's pretty obvious how this fight's going to go. I expect Davison Figueiredo to win the first 2 rounds, and I think it tremendously benefits Peter Yan that this is a 5-round fight. I don't trust the cardio of Davison Figueiredo, even at 135. And I do think his cardio should be better, but he's also 37 years old, and this is at 135. At some point, the cardio starts to go, and it's not like he was a cardio monster to begin with. Now, he is very good on the ground. People forget how good on the ground Davison Figueiredo is. He's got very good jiu-jitsu. He's got more power. He has more power than Peter Yan, too. And we know that Peter Yan takes some time to download the info and all that stuff. And Davison Figueiredo did just beat, not long ago, another fighter who basically does the same thing in, what the fuck's his name? Chito Vera. But Chito Vera is much better than, or Peter Yan is much better than Chito Vera. So for me, I just think that this is a potential live betting opportunity for Peter Yan, especially if Figueiredo wins the first 2 rounds like I kind of expect him to. I don't really see a finish in this fight. If anything, I could see a late Peter Yan finish with a gassed out Davison Figueiredo. I'm leaning this going to decision. So a couple things. I don't mind minus 188 over 4.5. But I'm just pretty damn confident in Peter Yan winning this one. So I'm going to take him at the minus 305. I do think that the odds are a little bit crazy here. And I'm going to tell you right now, this is probably the riskiest of the picks, of the 8 picks that I've just walked you through. Maybe minus 188 over 4.5 is the better bet. But both these guys, you know, I'm going to take Peter Yan on the money line. I'm taking Peter Yan on the money line. I am just very confident in him getting this win. But maybe look out for a live betting opportunity and maybe think about the over 4.5 rounds here. It's going to be a good fight, though. All right. All that being said, I've just given you guys 8 picks. I'm going to just go through them real quick, right? And at this point, I don't even know if they're in the right order or not. Let's just go backwards, right? So I got Peter Yan on the money line, minus 305. I got Yan Xiaonan on the money line, minus 198. I've got Loner Kavanaugh, minus 375. I've got Zhao Shanfeng, minus 410. Ming Yang Zhang, minus 340. Over 2.5 rounds on the Sahota versus Hun Choi. Over 2.5 rounds on the Long Zhao versus Quang Li. And I've got Kong Wang to win double chance KO TKO decision. And if you were, and I'm not saying you should, and you probably should, but if you were to parlay all of those together, you would get odds of plus 928. And that's taking Peter Yan on the money line. If you were to sprinkle instead of the minus 305, you put in the minus 188 over 4.5 rounds. That's easily a 10x parlay. Again, not saying you should do it, but overall, pretty high confidence picks, I'll say, this week. All right. So, like I said, we have the 8 main picks. I don't recommend necessarily parlaying all of those, but again, like I always tell you, it's your money. Do what the fuck you want to do with it. However, I told you I'll give you a parlay of the week, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. So, and this is, we're trying to be safe here, guys, right? Here are the 5. It's a 5-item parlay for this week, and here's what I'm giving you. And none of these should be news, right? So we're going to take the over 2.5 in the Long Zhao versus Quang Li fight. We're going to take Kavanaugh on the money line. We're going to take in the Hun Choi versus Sahota fight. We're going to take the over 2.5 on that one. We're going to add the Kong Wang double chance KO decision, and we are going to add the Yan Xiaonan money line. I don't feel confident enough in the main event to make any picks on that in the parlay. So if you were to listen to me and make this 5-item parlay, you get odds of plus 381. So if you were to bet 100 of your hard-earned dollars, you would get back, well, 481 technically, but 381 is what you would win. And that's all I got for you guys. That's all I got for you guys. Thank God I got through this goddamn card with the names, and it's been a nightmare. But thank you so much for tuning in. And again, one last time, please give me a like, give me a little subscribe, tune into the quick picks. Next week is off, and we get a much deserved rest. Thank you guys for tuning in. Appreciate it. Peace.